Today on Dead Dodge Garage, it's this 1969 Dodge Coronet 500 station wagon. I have every reason to believe this thing will never run again, but let's find out for sure. This quality specimen is the latest addition to our fine collection of, parts vehicles and projects here at Rocket Restorations. My coworker Evan actually dragged this thing all the way back from, somewhere in California. Doesn't really look like a California car to me. It's got a lot more stuff than I would expect. It's clearly been well cared for over the years, and generally it's just in very good shape. As you may know, my wife owns a 66 station wagon. We're just generally big fans of these things. So imagine my surprise and delight when this thing randomly showed up one morning. Imagine my continued surprise and delight when I figured out what was under here. That's right, it's a big block Chrysler. This is a 383 low deck big block. At least I'm pretty sure it is. I can't read the numbers and I don't really want to. Have you ever gotten really excited about a project just a little too soon? Well, that's kind of what happened here. Now, if all of this debris wasn't enough of a hint, well, there's a pretty good one. There's a hole there where the distributor's supposed to be. Clearly this thing's been dead for a very long time, and the chances of it running are extremely low. I mean, it's kind of covered in and full of rat poop. But I really want to know what junk motor means in this case, so question number one, will the crankshaft turn? Naturally, this is really difficult and annoying to even check. Even with the radiator removed, there's a fan in the way. Let's see. Of course, I've got an 1.25 inch socket. Same size all of these vintage Chrysler engines use. Will it turn? Whoa. That was just the ratchet. No it won't. Do the other way. Well, I tightened the bolt, so that's good. Nope. It's lock solid. Clearly the many years of being well maintained and cared for have had a bit of an effect. Well, I almost can't believe this, but the throttle actually moves, which tells me it didn't have a bunch of moisture intrusion through here. I'll just put this thing back here with the rest of the fire. I don't know what this is, but I really wish I hadn't touched it. Is this how that series The Last of Us got started? Naturally. The next question is, why is it stuck then? I mean, it doesn't look like a zillion gallons of water have gone down the carburetor. Let's pull the spark plugs out and look. Of course, that's easier to do on some of them than others. This is an AC car, and everything's here, which is pretty cool. When it's inevitably junk, well, it'll be a great parts donor. It's even got some decent sheet metal in places. Ooh, don't do that. I have a long history of accidentally smashing washer tanks. They're always so brittle. Did you know that doing spark plugs on big blocks kind of sucks? Well, it does. Come on now. It just doesn't want to. Well, I walked 100 feet uphill both directions in the pouring down rain to get a 3-inch extension. Let's see if that works. This thing's kind of gross. There we go. Well, that's not great. And there went the washer tank with my elbow. Now, why is this one already loose? Well, that's not so bad. Yeah, pretty much everything in here is in the way of getting the plugs out. They weren't thinking of me when they engineered these things. Okay. Anytime. Getting bored. Ow. It's just impossible to have a sparking socket that actually holds. All right, I couldn't get number 3 out because there's a gearbox in the way, and I don't care that much. 7 out of 8, that ain't bad. It's pretty obvious here we had a bit of a moisture intrusion issue. That's not great. It's also pretty clear these spark plugs were brand new, but it has run on them, so that's interesting. Similar news on this side, with 8 being the crustiest and 2 actually showing some as well. The middle cylinders, they're fine. According to the plugs, 5, 7, and 8 are the worst, which would make sense. If water was getting in there and running downhill that way, that's right where it would go. We happen to have one of these fancy thingies here, so let's see how bad it really is. Well, here's a look at number 7, and the short answer is, I've seen worse. It actually really doesn't look too bad. Let's check the other suspicious looking ones. Looking in number 5, we can clearly see rust on the valves there. It doesn't look too horrible, so I don't think this is our problem either. Well, here's number 8. That's looking not good. At the upper end of the piston it's okay, but down here at the bottom, not so much. I've got a really nice view of cylinder 2 here. That piston is down and the intake valve is open. So there is surface rust, but there's no super horrible stuff. This one, probably fine. Now, rust in your cylinders is bad. But from the perspective of someone that just read the words junk motor and doesn't really know what's going on in it, it's preferable to some other possibilities like spun rod bearings, crank broken in half, that sort of thing. It's something we can work with. We can get some sort of, I don't know, penetrant, magic oil, vinegar, rust dissolver, something in that cylinder back there. Try to soak that stuff and see if it'll break free. So let's do that. I don't know what this mysterious juice is, but that seems like a good place to start. Hey, maybe this crap will do something too. You know, I love 383s. They're fantastic engines. And even if this one doesn't run, it's worth a whole lot more to us as a core that rotates. As it is right now, it's, you know, scrap pile food. Maybe a boat anchor. Maybe. This is it's about as difficult as it looks. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's say that's it. You can tell the good stuff by the smell. Really, with the ultra slow flow tip, that's probably a good start. Although I don't see it pouring out on the ground yet. Sure, why not? That stuff really needs some time to soak in there. Try and knock that rust free. And patience here is a virtue. Unfortunately, it's one I don't possess. So let's try a bigger breaker bar. Did I mention this fan that's right in the way? Try and work it back and forth. Loosen the balancer bolt, naturally. It's well stuck, that's for sure. It actually is pouring out all over the ground. Excellent. Well, I took the liberty of adding some magic juice to all the other suspicious looking cylinders. And yes, I did make a horrible mess. I'm gonna let this thing sit here and think about its life for a little while. Then we'll come back and see if it wants to turn. I'm not gonna hold my breath. Well, today is tomorrow. And as you can see here, things aren't exactly going to plan. Now I did remove the cooling fan to get access to this bolt a little bit better, but only after I creamed my right elbow on the fender. So despite letting the rings soak overnight, well, she doesn't want to do the thing. The center bolt's happy to come loose for me, that's nice. Yeah, so that's not great. I found the unstuck carburetor a very encouraging sign. Maybe, just maybe, this thing didn't get filled with rainwater. Then I finally pulled the dipstick and found this. So that's not great. Ugh. There's a good bit of evidence of moisture here too. Not entirely uncommon. You do see condensation in there, but this is quite bad. The end of this dipstick is actually almost rusted off. Now this is a first for me. I mean, if you saw the video I did on that horribly rusty Slant 6 Scamp, well, you saw that thing run, and it was under a tree next to the ocean for 20 years. This thing was in California. But apparently it was at the beach in California, and, well, you can see what we ended up with. From the looks of that dipstick, the bottom end of this thing filled up with water. It's not in there now, so it may have rusted a hole in the oil pan and worked its way out. I don't know how that would have happened, but it's bad. Now, I'm not saying there's no hope. I mean, it could sit here and soak for another week, and maybe it'll break free. I probably will keep trying, but I think the likelihood of success is extremely low. If the crank is rusted solid to the bearing surfaces, well, that's a bit of a problem. I could try and fill the oil pan, like way overfill the oil pan, and soak all of that in transmission fluid or diesel or something like that. Even if that worked, there's a lot to contend with. Am I surprised? No, not at all. But this is definitely telling an interesting story. I mean, someone put new spark plugs in this thing, and it ran. It clearly ran. Then they decided the engine was junk. They took the parts they needed, the distributor anyway, and they sent it away. Now, we kind of have a theory on this. In removing the fan, I realized the water pump was really, really bad. Maybe that was making horrible noise, and they decided this thing was garbage. Maybe it had a rod knock. Maybe it had a flat cam. I don't know. What I do know is if I could get it to rotate, I could probably get it to run. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that chance from the looks of things. Hey, if nothing else, let this be a good lesson. This is the reality of trying to revive crap. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it says no. Sometimes it says no, then yes, then no, then yes, and then it catches on fire. More often than not in my universe, they just run with no protest or problem. I usually like to chalk that up to Chrysler quality. But unfortunately, the best built engine is going to have problems if it's full of water. So unfortunately, that's probably it for this fine specimen. It's probably going to be parts. It's a little too far gone to be a project. And there is a good 8 3/4 axle under there. And disc brakes. And all the big block AC parts. So, you know, a lot of good will come out of this one way or the other. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you like this sort of automotive disaster, feel free to subscribe because I'm sure I'll find more. And remember, sometimes you eat the bear, and sometimes the bear kicks you in the nuts.